Okay, my apologies. We're a couple of minutes late starting this morning, and we have a very, very busy morning here. So I can see it's actually just gone in my watch here, 2 minutes past 10. So hopefully all of you guys have your coffee at the ready in those extra couple of minutes you put to use. Again, we have a very busy session here this morning, something a little bit different to our normal technical sessions, although I suppose it's a little bit technical in some way on technology and social media. And I'm delighted to say we're actually being joined by over 220 have booked onto the course this morning. Shows us great interest in this topic, quite obviously. And I know as well, of course, it's a very busy time with tax deadlines and so on, particularly in the Republic of Ireland. So thanks to everybody for taking the time to join with us. I'm going to give it another minute or two. I see we have about 80 or so attendees. And we'll kick off then, as I say, a busy session, a little bit of a technical talk from a colleague from Karen and from Stephanie about social media, but also what promises to be a very interesting group discussion with Colin and Kieran just on the practicalities of practitioners and social media as well. Guys, I think we're at about 85 joined up so far, so we hopefully will a little bit more, but I'll just kick on anyway and do the introductions. And rather than having a slide, I'm just going to look around our screen here. Hopefully you can all see everybody here. And I'm going to start with the ladies. And first of all, with Karen and Stephanie. Now, Karen may be familiar to some of you, actually. We've collaborated on past events in Belfast and in Northern Ireland. Karen is actually a fellow accountant herself, a CPA, and originally from the United States. Karen has actually lived in the UK and in Scotland for about 20 years now. And back in 2012, she set up her own firm, WeRPF, the profitable firm, and it's a creative marketing agency exclusively for accountants to help you to grow your firm, to market your firm. It's a very challenging area. So Karen and Stephanie, who is her colleague, Stephanie has actually worked with WeRPF for about a year now, but her whole career has been in business development and marketing. Both are joining us from Scotland this morning. Haven't got an exact location, but I'm sure, Karen, you'll tell us when you get to your talk. And our initial talk will be Karen and Stephanie will be sharing with us basically their experiences in helping practices all over the UK and Ireland, but also further afield in marketing in themselves over the last 8 or 9 years. So it promises to be an invaluable talk. Now, the practicality and the theory, that's all very good. But we also, I'm delighted to be joined here by two fellow practitioners from Chartered Accountants Ireland. I'm going to kick off with Colin here, and I'm sure some of you know Colin. Colin is from Tramore in County Waterford. And he actually, along with his partner, Ger Foley, founded Comerford Foley in 2011. Colin would be a tax consultant specializing in tax, and they've grown their practice over the last 10 years to serve clients across the SME sector and specialist sectors as well, right across the southeast and beyond. And both Colin and actually Kieran, who's next, would have actually worked with Karen on marketing their firm. So Kieran as well, some of you may be familiar with Kieran even from our last practice news. Kieran is in the other side of the island in Derry. Founded his firm as well, Cloud 360 Accounting, back about 2010, 2011. And Kieran, I always use these words, now you probably are cringing, I'm going to say technology pioneer, as I say about you. Kieran would actually have been the first Zero certified chartered accountant in Northern Ireland. And also as well, he would really always have technology at the heart of his actual work. Now, as I said, Kieran and Colin have both worked with Karen in improving their marketing over recent years. And in the second half of our actual talk, from about 10:35 onwards, Karen, Colin and Kieran are going to talk about the real life experiences, things they've learned, things they wish they had known at the start with relation to social media. So it really brings it all to life, particularly if you're a complete beginner. So that's enough about everyone. Obviously, I've forgotten about myself, and most of you, I'm sure, here that are actually on our practice consulting calls will know myself and Conal. We've given Conal the day off today. He's on a little bit of leave. And basically, I work for the last 4 years in practice consulting, compliance support, growing your practice, but also training in different things, sometimes technical, sometimes something more like this on social media. That's enough about me. The next thing, just to say to you, we have over 220 people on the call today. And if you get to our slides, which we do have on this, we have right across the island, I think all 32 counties or so. Most of the people on here today would actually be fellows who actually have their own practices. So about 60% would be partners in their own practices. And also about another 20% working in practice, some people from business as well. Now, we tend to have nearly everybody here today is from the island of Ireland. We have a couple more as well from a little bit further afield. I think we have somebody in from Malta, somebody from Bulgaria, somebody as well from just the UK, a couple of people from Wales and England. You're all very, very welcome. And if you want a little bit more breakdown of who the people are, as I say, the slides that we did send out will actually have that there. Otherwise, for what we're going to cover this morning, very, very much a quick overview here. As I say, it really is just the opportunities that actually social media will actually offer your actual practice. It could be the traditional things we think of, growing your practice, winning new clients, but also as well, how to communicate better with your actual current client base. And that's been very, very important over the last 18 months when we haven't been able to do face-to-face meetings, and technology, social media has really come to the fore in that. But even also as well, helping you to hire new staff, very, very important. And one of the biggest issues facing anybody in business these days, but particularly small accountancy practices. Also, it'll be great as well, the discussion with the guys with relation to even just the things that they have learned, but also the tips and I suppose they'll talk candidly about the mistakes and things that they actually encountered over the last few years. And that'll really help you to avoid those pitfalls and mistakes. All I'll say to you is don't be shy, as I say here. We always encourage questions in our Q&A function. So please do type in any questions you have as we go along. We'll try to take them as we go along, but we also have left some time at the actual end as well. Now, that's enough about me. I'm going to hand you over to Karen and to Stephanie. And I think, Karen, you have some slides ready to go, and hopefully you'll be able to share your screen now. And I think I see it. That's very, very good. So guys, over to you.
Thank you. Lovely to see. Well, I was going to say lovely to see you all. I'm not seeing you, you're seeing us, but I would love to see you in the chat box, because I've got a few questions to ask that help make sure that the things I'm talking about actually relate to you. So if you can go to the chat box and select the thing that says "to everyone" instead of just hosts and panelists, and that way, whatever you share, everybody gets to see if you want to. These are just questions about what social media you're using now, if any, your feelings about social. And I find when we do that, it feels a little bit more like I'm standing in front of you and we're all just chatting or raising hands or whatever it be. So if you just change the little marker in your chat box that says "to everyone" and, you know, type something in there if you want to share where you're joining from in Ireland or wherever in the world, and type that in, then I and all the others can see it. And then we'll be able to know where you're at. So in that chat box then, and you can use the Q&A if you have a proper question, but the chat box is just for some thoughts and things that you feel and are thinking about and wondering about, and some answers to help us, because I can talk about social. I can talk about a lot of things, as all of those here know, and we have a lot of things that we want to share. But what I want to do is make sure that what we're talking about social media actually applies to you. I know when we were chatting and preparing for this, Jeremy was pointing out, and Kieran and Colin confirmed, that sometimes the area of social media, especially for accountants in Ireland, can feel like, well, you know, does that really work? I like the personal connection. I actually get referrals, word of mouth anyway. Is this even worth it? So I'm really honored that all of you who are here and those who are listening to the recording later are making the effort to learn about it, because I am sure that it is tempting at times to think, is this even worth bothering with at all? And later on, Kieran and Colin are going to share some of their honest feelings that they've had and still have about it. I've had a lot of conversations lately with accountants who are starting to go, you know, is social media worth using? What social do I use? How do I use it? And those kind of questions haven't really changed in the past. I mean, I've been running PF for nearly 10 years now and working with accountants for almost 20. And the questions are really quite similar. And even though the platforms change a bit, you know, I was talking to somebody recently about how Facebook tends to be used by older people for groups. I only use it for business groups. Instagram is my personal favorite, but even then, Insta is sort of for the late 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s. You're finding TikTok or Snapchat more for the younger ones. So the platform is going to keep changing. So we're not going to focus too much on what platform exactly to use, because we could tell you something and then in 3 months something new could change. Like Facebook literally just changed its whole name last night. That's a whole nother thing. This happens all the time though. Branding changes, names changes, platforms changes. The social media platforms that are there are ones that they are trying to get you to use them and stay on them. So they are changing all the time. They notice what one platform is doing and they do it in another one. Instagram uses stories and Twitter tried to use stories and it was a complete fail because everyone's like, Twitter's not Instagram. What are you doing? And then they realize their mistake and they change it. So this is less about the technical element or telling you what to do. That doesn't work with marketing anyway, because everybody's different. The point is to understand a few principles of social media so that no matter what happens to the platforms, you can still apply it in a way that's useful for your audience. But it's good to start with how you feel about it. So type into the chat box. Remember to change the little thing to everyone so everyone can see it. Just throw in, how do you feel about social media as an accountant? Like as honest as you can possibly be, because there's no point not being honest. That's what gets us to the good stuff. So how do you feel about using social media? Do you feel interested? Do you feel frustrated? Do you feel confused? Do you feel like, is it actually worth it? Do you really enjoy it? Certainly Colin and Kieran will share later, but if you guys want to type into the chat as well, how you felt when you first started looking at it, like what were you thinking about social and about using it as an accountant? And a lot of the accountants I am talking to are going, I think that it can be useful to get me leads, but I'm not sure, and I want to understand how it works. These are some of the things that have been shared with us in the past. Accountants can sometimes look at social as, is this just an obligation? Is it something that I have to do? Is it really real? People share stuff. Is that for real or is it just for show? I've put the humble brag on there because that's one of the ones that drives me just, I use social and there's a lot of things I like about it, but the thing I don't is the whole, taking situations or even making up situations and using it to be like, well, I made millions in no time and here's a picture of my shiny new car and you too can be like this, and that sort of thing, which feels really frustrating because it feels fake. And I'm a big fan of authenticity and honesty and being the same online as you are in person. So if somebody meets you or your firm on social and they meet you in person, they're not going, oh, I didn't realize that you're like that. You want them to match. And that's what your prospects want to do. They want that to match. I'm just looking at some of the feelings that people are sharing. Thank you so much for these. Confused and cautious. I think that's such an honest and real response. Like, if I don't know how to use it, am I going to use it wrong? And is it actually going to work? Some people finding it useful and necessary. And I think sometimes when you're using it as a tool that's necessary, it can be frustrating because it's not natural. A lot of people saying, well, I'm not sure about this particular platform, about that other one. Consistency of time, absolutely. This is something that takes time. I'm not going to lie to you. There's anything in marketing is going to involve both time and money. And you can either go heavy on the time and do lots of things yourselves and spend a little money, or you can spend more money and spend a little less time, but you're still going to need to invest your own time. As the owner or leader of an accountancy firm, marketing is ultimately your responsibility. It is not something that can be abdicated or handed off to somebody else, because, as we're saying, the point of any marketing, including social media, is for people to find that it matches. So if you just say, oh, okay, could somebody just write an email for us? It needs to be based on reality. It needs to be based on your actual, the humans that work in your firm and the humans you work with and the stories that you tell. So all of these things are real, and it seems that they are matched by those that are sharing in the chat. So thank you for those, and please keep those coming as well. I'm just going to share a few points that I've noticed and we at PF have noticed about social media in principle, and we can talk about some of these detailed questions and platforms. But ultimately, social is another way to help you be visible to the people that you want to work with. And this is why your audience matters so much. And this is why it matters so much what platform you choose, because you want to choose a platform where you are visible to the right kind of people. So for example, LinkedIn is not my personal favorite. I find Instagram, it's very visual with photographs and video, and I find it more human and more creative and more interesting personally. But I use LinkedIn because a lot of accountants are on LinkedIn, and that's my audience. I and PF, we work exclusively and only with accountants, helping them with marketing. So in order to be visible, that's what I use. It's not always my default, but I choose to use it so that I can be visible. And that's what you want to do as well. You want to use social so that future clients can actually get to know you. And this is why it's important not to use social as I'm going to say as a sales tool. And I trust you understand what I mean. When you use social media well, you will end up making sales because of it. But it's not going to be one of these where you're like, oh, I posted this one thing on Twitter one time and got 6 clients. That's not how it works. That's not how marketing works. Social is about helping the clients that you would love to work with sort of get a feel for who you are before they meet you. So when they come and they inquire, do a discovery call or whatever it be, they're like, you know, I feel like I like this company, this firm. I feel like these might be my people. They have a little more trust. You're building trust. So the same sort of things you would do if you met somebody in networking or at an event, or if somebody referred you, those are the sort of things you're doing on social, but you're doing it on a long time frame because they're looking for patterns. Your future clients are looking for patterns. And it's the same sort of thing I would hope you would do in a hiring process. If you were to hire an employee for your firm, I hope you wouldn't just get a resume, have a 45-minute interview and hire them, because you want to look for patterns. You want to be sure they're for real. And people can put anything on a CV. But when you take the combination of what they share here and how their emails are sent and the little tester projects you give them to see if they know what they're doing, then you begin to see patterns of what they're like as they could be like as a team member. This is the sort of thing your future clients are looking for. They're looking at your social to say, does it match? Are they the same person online and offline? There's a statistic about websites for accountants that I've found really fascinating, especially for accountants, that of the people who have been referred to you. So this is somebody who says, listen, you got to talk to Colin at Commerce for Fully, such a great firm. They will help you out. Kieran is the best. Go to Kieran, Cloud 360, go and talk to him. Of the people who have been referred to you, 46% of them never get in touch with you. Usually because of your website. Now, it could also be your social. So they could go to your website and be like, maybe I'll look later. Looks like every other accountancy firm website. Some of them will go so far as to go to your social and then come to the same thing. You know, maybe you posted once in 2012 and said, here's my first tweet, I'm going to do this, and then nothing. Or every post is, hey, we can help you with this. Hey, we can help you with this. Here's our services. Talk to us today. Social is meant to be social. You're meant to help people get to know you as a person. So you're asking yourself, well, why do they even need to see this? Why do they even need to connect with me? I'm going to talk about audience, but I want to just quickly introduce these 12 elements of content marketing. This is something that we've been using as a principle for a long time at PF. It's been at least 7 years. We've been running coaching groups on this, And these 12 elements have not really changed, and it's important they go in order. And you'll notice that social is number 11 of the 12. And that's because if you're going to use social media, you need to understand who you are talking to, what their issues are, what you stand for, your branding, your design, all of these things, because the social is harking back to your website. Your social is including video. Your social is linking to blogging, all of those kinds of things. So knowing all of these, we often find when we're running the accelerator, which is the coaching group that goes through these 12, that people are thinking, okay, just tell me what social to use and I'll use it. Tell me what video to record and I'll do it. But it always comes back to your audience. Like, who is it that you're actually talking to? And not just broadly like businesses or business owners, but actually who specifically, what kind of people, what are their likes and dislikes? Who are they as people? What do they care about? Who do they care about? And the more you understand about who your perfect client is, then the better you can craft your social media for them. This is an example of a firm we've worked with in the States. We work with accountancy firms all over the world. And to encourage you, all of the challenges that accountants face with social media marketing are very similar all over the world. And even though every accountant is different and is unique. But this particular accountant specifically focuses on creatives, creative and entertainment businesses. So their website and their social is all about them. So they tend to use Instagram and other more creative social platforms because that's where those people are. So when you're asking yourself what platform to use, you want to ask yourself what they would use. This isn't about your preference. As an accountant, you probably, with most accountants, lean towards using LinkedIn because it's comfortable, it's more professional. I put that in quotes because sometimes professional just means boring, but it's the focus on work things and accounting things and facts and data rather than the personal element. I've actually been encouraged to see LinkedIn has a lot more personal elements in it because business is something that is personal. You know this, you know the clients you work with, you enjoy them as a person, you talk to them as a person, you talk about their family and their life. So your social needs to do that too. But if LinkedIn is your personal preference, it's fine, but it's more about your audience and what they care about. Like who's your audience? Where would they be hanging out? And you may need to try a new social platform that's a little different from your own preference because that's where they are and that's what they use. So one thing you could also type into the chat box there and just change the little thing to everyone if you're willing to do that. And just type in what is the platform that you personally would lean towards using the most. Mine would be Instagram, probably followed by Twitter. Those would be my top two, Instagram and then Twitter. So put that in there as to your personal ones, the ones that you would use and would lean towards and would prefer. See a couple things coming here. Good number of LinkedIn's, you know, that's absolutely grand. There's nothing wrong with using LinkedIn if you like it. The question is, what is it that your clients are using or your future clients or your perfect clients? Where are they hanging out? Now, if they are all hanging out on LinkedIn, great, you keep using that. But if for some reason they're not, you need to push yourself to consider another platform, because if you're using the one that you like, then you're just going to be followed by other accountants. And I get this from accountants all the time. They're often saying, gosh, I've started to notice that a lot of my posts get all this traction, but it's not from the kind of clients I want to work with. It's from other accountants or, you know, other colleagues or people I used to work with. So the point of social is to be seen by your future clients. So you need to be present in a way that's visible to them. So if they're on Facebook, use Facebook. If they're on Instagram, use Instagram. And the only way to know is to test it and look and do searches and follow people. We'll talk about this briefly, but in terms of what you say, actually, I would take a step back and say it's not entirely about all the things that you say. We suggest the 80-20 rule. That means 20% of what you're posting is about you and your firm. Hey, we have this, we're running this event, we offer this service. The other 80% is sharing other people's stuff. Kieran shared this and I thought it was great. Look at what Commerce for Fully is doing. Institute of Chartered Accountants is doing this event. I thought it was good. Here's a funny meme or GIF that I saw. Like, sharing other people's stuff and connecting and commenting and liking and engaging is 80% of what you do on social. So if you're only posting directly on a social account about your firm, you're missing 80%. So the great news is it actually relieves a bit of a burden from you, because instead of you being responsible to say and share all the things all the time, you have an opportunity to just like other people's posts, comment, share, add a reaction of some kind, add, like, honestly, just adding a GIF or an image reply or an emoji of some kind can sometimes be enough to get conversations going. And that's the point of social, is to get conversations going. So you want it to sound like you want them to connect with you. This is one of our team members, Kendall, and she had shared on Facebook this video that she was working on, and she kept the bloopers. And one of the things that she had said is, something about all the Canadians in Canada. And she's like, where did this even come from? And it was funny because we all make mistakes with these things. And I thought it was interesting that she just threw these words together, threw it on Facebook, and she had all these people going, yeah, I connect with that, been there, done that. And then she went to put it on like LinkedIn or one of the other social platforms, in connection with PF. And it didn't sound as human and as comfortable, because she was starting to go, oh, this is a social post and I have to do it like that. The best thing you can do with social is just say what you want to say. That's the beautiful part. This isn't a website page or an email or a blog post, just some thoughts. And the more real you are, the more people engage with it. So I've noticed that some of my most liked or engaged with posts on social are the ones that I just dash off the top of my head. Whereas the ones that I craft carefully and record a special video and make sure I have the captions, I'm like, this is the best post ever, I get a few people, looking at it because it feels like a post I've crafted. Whereas if I suddenly say something about the pouring rain in Scotland this morning, or coffee, or Harry Potter, or whatever it be, suddenly people are sharing that because it's real and it's human. And having that connection, having conversations is the first thing to focus on, because you're going to be tempted to focus on the numbers first. It's no problem tracking the numbers. We'll talk about that briefly. But it's about having conversations with people. It's not about the number of likes that you get. If you have 2 likes, but one of them is somebody who's been following you for years and thinks you're amazing and eventually gets in touch for a conversation, that's what matters. This is quality over quantity for sure. There's a couple, this is one of our accountants that we're working with who's doing lots of videos, and just the conversations that she has, she always responds to people either with a thank you or something. And the more you respond to people and engage with their comments on social, the more your posts are seen by other people. So it's important to do that. We talked about the 20 versus 80. So 20% promotional. Here's our stuff. This is about us. And 80% is non-promotional. That makes it non-salesy. Most accountants I talk to don't want to be salesy, actually have a fear and a horror of being pushy and salesy and pushing people into things. This is the great news. Social is just for being present and engaging with people as people. So the more you can comment and like and share and say, hey, I thought that was great, and focus on other people, the more people end up noticing you, not because you're promoting yourself, but because you are visible. So a couple of things about what to share. You can use the they ask you answer principle. If you haven't read that book by Marcus Sheridan, if you just type in the name of the book and the author stuff into the chat for everybody, highly recommend this. I think Kieran and Colin, you've both read this. Yeah. And follow this principle. Really, the answer is in the title. The questions your clients and prospects ask you, answer them online. Put it in a blog post, put it in a video, answer it on social, and then people get their questions answered. And it has to be the questions that they actually ask, not the ones you make up in your head, not like, oh, you may have been wondering, this about accounting and bookkeeping. They're not wondering that. Whatever they're actually wondering, if they're wondering how much accounting services cost, talk about that. If they're wondering why they need bookkeeping anyway, talk about that. If they're wondering why they need to bother with an app rather than paper receipts, talk about that. Whatever they ask, you answer it. These are some of our clients who have done this sort of thing. Kinder Pocock, lots of blogs on They Ask You Answer. This is a firm in the States who have shared stories about their clients and the results and the profits and the improvements that have gone on, and they've shared that. A lot of the members of our accelerator groups are making GIFs and recording videos, and they're just sharing things related to what their clients are asking. So when you're thinking about sharing, yes, share your thoughts and what you are doing, but also just connect with other people. I'm going to briefly talk about tracking because we're going to move on to hearing from Colin and Kieran. There's a whole session that we do as part of Accelerator on tracking your numbers. And the short version on this is that you don't only want to track your social media numbers or your Google Analytics or whatever it be. You want to track all the various marketing numbers, your Google Analytics, your social media, your number of clients, your number of prospects, your number of proposals, the emails that you send out, all of the integrated marketing numbers so that you can see the impact of what you do on social on all of them. It's all integrated. It's like connected. You're not going to simply post something once on Facebook and go viral. It's just probably not going to happen. And honestly, if it did happen, then you'd have to deal with all the haters and the people with very strong opinions. That's what happens when things go viral. You're better off to slowly, patiently, consistently be posting about the same sort of things in the same direction for the same kind of people, so that over time people get used to who you are and how you do things, and they see the patterns of who you are as a firm. So as part of the accelerator, for those of you who end up, some of you may want to go through that coaching group. It's a 12-week coaching group, doesn't start till next February, so you got time for that. But part of it is this tracking tab, and we help you figure out what you need to be tracking and to look for those patterns, because the things that you do on whatever social platforms are going to impact your other marketing and vice versa. So then it's not about, did my one email get me results? Did my one Twitter post lead me to clients? And it takes the pressure off of the one marketing effort or the one social media platform, and it puts all of the focus on all of your integrated marketing. How does your social impact your website numbers? How does your website blog posting affect with the video in it, the video numbers of YouTube? How do your YouTube numbers then impact your social, and all connected? And the firms that we work with, where we track for them, it's a service that we offer at PF, where we can do all this tracking for you, and we give you a report, and then we talk about what it means. What does it mean that these numbers have gone up and these numbers have gone down? Why did those numbers go down? We don't need to panic about that, because there's reasons, so we'll adjust things. And it's about adjusting your marketing based on the things that work for you and for your firm. And that's really the core point, is how it works for you, which is going to be different. There's going to be some similar principles, but in the main, it's how does social work for you? What platform do your clients use? How are they the best, ideal, perfect clients? How are they going to find you? Because one of the biggest dangers for accountants, and you'll even find this when we're talking to Colin and Kieran, you're gonna be like, okay, Kieran did that, so that's what works, so that's what I need to do. Maybe, but maybe what works for Kieran doesn't work for you at all. Maybe what works for Colin doesn't work for you. Maybe what works for PF doesn't work for you. There are some principles that are going to work, but really it's about what works for you, because it works for your audience and where they are and where they're hanging out. So I'm going to move to chatting to Colin and Kieran here, but I just wanted to remind you of this this truth, this applies to anything in marketing, but especially social media. It does not, you don't start posting one day and then in 5 or 10 days, ta-da, you get these big wins and everything works. This is literally how marketing and social and all of these things work. You move forward and then you fall and then you drop and then you go up and you go down and then it becomes a big old mess. And eventually you kind of come out to realize what works for you over a long period of time by being consistent in the same direction. And I don't want this to be discouraging. I want to encourage you by the fact that every accountant I've talked to has the same experience. And if you think you'll go into it by, okay, I'm going to come to this webinar and PF's going to tell me what platform to use and exactly what hashtags to use and what days to post on, sadly, there is no, perfect answer for that. But encouragingly, the more you try things for your firm and your ideal audience, and try things that, some things that Karen's doing, some things that Colin's doing, some things that PF is doing, that will help you to navigate through this and come out the other side to what works for you because it works for your audience. We do have a load of free stuff, by the way. Steph will drop the PF website in there. So we're big on free stuff at PF. And that's because we're trying to show by example. We want you guys to also share things with your clients and your prospects until they're ready. We've got other trainings and stuff that you can do, like the lab, you can sign up for later. But the reason we share the free stuff is because we want to be helpful online and show you by example how it's done. So you can look at that later. So that's the quick run through. As I'm sure you can see, we could probably spend a day on that. But the reason we asked Karen and Colin here was to help show you real live people who are putting this into practice. And we just wanted to work through with them some of the things that they've discovered and are working through there. So Jeremy, are you happy for me to carry on with that, or do you have anything to add?
No, thank you for that very good overview. And I suppose if there's one thing that you really have brought home, and I have found in my own experience as well, social media, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And there is, as I say, no magic bullets, no magic solutions. So I think that's the one thing for sure. But I'm sure yourself, Colin and Kieran, are going to tell us a lot more about what you've learned in between all that.
Yes. Well, actually, just a quick point on that one. One of the things I shared on social a few weeks ago is I went to a whiskey distillery in Scotland, and it happens to be the whiskey distillery that has the slowest stills in Scotland. So their whiskey takes the longest to distill, and they're very proud of this. It's on their tagline. It's called "The right way is the long way." And I was really moved by that. I shared a video and some thoughts on it because of how it relates to marketing. And I thought, anytime I've seen accountants get success in social media, it's from the long way of being consistent and faithful in the same direction. And there are other whiskey distilleries that do things differently. That's fine. But they take pride in that because they've found that makes their whiskey the way they want to make it.
And that's a very good analogy, I think, because with all accountants, we'd all like to, I'm sure, encourage having long-term client relations. We have to get to know our clients. This is all about touch points, conversation, as you said, key, get the conversation going, do whatever else as well. So that is a very, very good analogy. Listen, I'm going to leave it back to you, Kieran, and Colin. Thanks again for.
So we have a few questions to ask Kieran and Colin just to get it going. So Kieran, I'm going to start with you. The first question we had is, what kinds of things either did surprise you or you feel might surprise accountants about social media when you're thinking about, the things that you've learned and seen that maybe was a little bit different than you originally thought?
Yeah, I think that it's, for me, when I started using social media around about 2013, 2014, and hadn't a clue what I was doing, what I was meant to be doing, what platform, all those types of questions that you were covering. And what surprised me, and it's sort of the penny dropped a few years later, was very much that social media is the clues in the title. It's social. And I thought, right, okay, I get it now. It's like, don't expect that linear version of results. And we as accountants are very much trying to create a certain amount of certainty for clients and for ourselves. And this feels like it's uncertain. So it's very much like, well, what's the point of doing something if it's so uncertain, if we're not going to get certainty in terms of results? It is about playing the long game. It is about being more social than anything else, in my opinion. And that's not to say I'm saying be social like, you know, you're just walking on the bar to have a drink and socialize with people like that, but it's, you know, be social, interact, and just play that long game out. So for me, the big surprise was, you know, don't expect this overnight thing to happen. And very much as well, like what we do now, Karen, is we plan out our socials, you know, at least about a month in advance. So we're sitting down now and we know for the month of November, this is what we're going to be talking about. And that for me creates a bit of certainty.
Yes.
But the results are still uncertain. And you just have to see how it goes. Yeah. So for me, that was the surprise. But accepting that, I think, is a big thing as well. So just accept that is going to be the way it's going to be. And just play it like that and see what works, see what seems to be getting results. So the big surprise was be more social. You don't have to be, I mean, some accountants are on social being very, very, very social. They're very personal and they are getting clients as a result of that. Yeah. Some accountants are on social just being very informative and just posting about specific tax, technical type stuff and are maybe getting results from that. Again, it's down to what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that point about giving a little certainty by doing some planning. And as I know, I'm absolutely confident you found out, and all the accountants we work with have found out too, is you can plan all you like, but you also need to be ready to respond when something happens. Yeah. So when something happens in the world or something happens in your life or your team and you share that quickly, it sort of tops up the foundational social that's there. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's very much. I think about, if you think, I've heard certain people say things like this, you know, if you're comparing social media and what we're trying to do on there, we're trying to create awareness of yourself, your personal brand, your company brand, your ethos, and what you're all about. You're trying to share content and, you know, be sharing and be knowledgeable and show that you're an expert in a certain field. You're certainly not aiming to sort of treat it like you wouldn't walk into a pub, walk up to somebody and say, would you like to marry me? That's never going to happen. So you don't kind of do that on social either. It's really, for me, play that game of, you know, create the content that's right for you as a firm and for your target audience, and engage with them on a regular basis as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that, like, if somebody did do that, you know, hey, do you want to get married? That's kind of creepy vibes. So that's not quite what people want. You want that slow pace. And this is where accountants excel. Like you've said, Karen and Jeremy as well. This is where accountants excel, is at the long game. So this is what you as accountants can be really, really good at. And that way you don't have to do the salesy stuff that you don't want to do. Colin, what kind of things surprised you about social the more you looked into it?
I suppose the main thing that surprised me would have been the fact that it works, and that I remember back, say, when we set up our business in around 2011, 2012, and you look at a set of accounts, and I remember looking at the marketing spend of a client, and I just viewed that as a complete and utter waste of money. I said, why is he wasting money like that? And in my head, I said, if I spend, or we are as a business spend €1 on marketing, that's just a waste of €1. So I've come from being zero to kind of fully embracing this stuff. And I suppose if we think of how we found you, or how we found when we founded a business accountancy coach in the UK, we found you through social, you know. And what really was interesting to me is how do our, you know, future clients find us. So in my head, when we were starting out in business, I said, like, if we do good quality work for clients, well, then we'll have loads and loads of clients knocking on the door, trying to get in, and that's just not the case. So the position, I suppose, and I spoke to Jera on this, and it's very, my business partner, Ger Foley, and what we said was that if you can get a good quality client through social, you'll keep them through good quality work, but you won't necessarily get them from good quality work.
And what, just a follow-up on that one, Colin, what helped you when you were in the, okay, honestly, marketing is the biggest waste of money? And I love Colin's honesty here, because there's no point in pretending otherwise. I remember we had multiple conversations about this, and I know you did with many others. What kinds of thinking or comments or thoughts helped you move from complete waste of time to, I'm going to try this?
Like, I think, you know, one of the things I went to recently was Google left Dublin and they came down to the regions. And, you know, what really struck home for me is, if anybody has a problem now, you know, you're on your phone, you're not even on your laptop, you're on your phone and you're typing in your problem and you're trying to find out the answer. Yeah. And it probably comes back to the we ask you answer thing. You know, you're trying to find the solution yourself, and so you research it. And if you read something on the problem, well, then you've come to a solution. You'll find it on YouTube. So our clients are no different. You know, they have financial problems, they have bookkeeping problems, and that's where they find us, and that's where we decided that, I suppose, print media wasn't going to be a way for us to attract clients. We just saw that as probably being dead in the water. Yeah. And therefore we started writing blogs consistently and posting consistently across a number of channels, you know, and we were of the view that this wasn't going to kind of transform the business overnight. Yes. But it would take a period of time. But we now see from the consistency we have on social media, and that's just not, it's not just blogs, or it's a combination of factors, but we see that we get calls, you know, we get meetings, we get business, and what Jeremy spoke about earlier is also important, is that, you know, future staff will also see you. Yes. And that, I think, is very relevant to attracting the right quality of person to your business, so that when the clients do come in from social media, they have a very good person on the other end who's looking after them. So I suppose
that's such a good point. Thanks for bringing that one up. I was just going to highlight the fact that Google itself did the research to show that the online buyer does 70% of their research on you before they ever get in touch. So that means 70% of their buying decision has been made before they fill in a discovery call form, before they fill in anything, before they call, or whatever the call to action is. And like Colin pointed out, that isn't only prospects, that's team members too. And I would argue that social media is even more important for future team members. And Kieran, I know you had this experience, you were mentioning that people are like, oh, wow, you seem like a great firm to work for.
Yeah, exactly. And just touching on a point that Colin mentioned there about, you know, your prospects viewing you online, and Kieran, building on that point from the research that they're doing. The book that you've shared, They Ask, They Answer, I can't recommend it highly enough as a marketing tool, and it's very much an eye-opener. I know the guy talks about the company that had in America, like swimming pools was their thing. Yeah. And he goes and sort of explains that, you know, they're almost 90% ready to buy, given the marketing strategy that they implemented, by the time they come to you. But I can't remember the actual figures, Karen, but he does quote, how long do you think people are spending on your website? And I think it's something like 6 hours. I can't even remember, but it was like when I read it, I thought, oh my God.
It was at least 6 to 10 hours. And I think sometimes it can be upwards of 10 to 16 hours.
Yeah, so they're going through sort of everything to sort of get an idea of where you're at. And, you know, it's convincing themselves to buy. So your website and your social, almost, there has to be that linkage to help people to on the buyer's journey. And one of the things that I found really interesting was, like, I think of one client who we signed up this year. The first thing they said when we got them onto a discovery call was, we've been looking at you for about a year.
Yes.
And I didn't know.
Yeah. That's
You know,
right.
they might have liked a few things, but they actually didn't even comment and stuff, Karen, on social. It was like, we've just been watching you for about a year.
That's what we were talking about when we were preparing for this webinar, and that's what we called the lurkers. And it's not a creepy kind of lurker. There are a few creepy lurkers. These are the people who are just not ready. Like Karen said, they're not ready to comment or like or share or say, I think you're the greatest, because they don't know. They haven't made that decision. Yeah. They're just taking in and taking in. We have the same thing at PF. We've had people ask, you know, what's your buyer cycle for an accountant coming to you? The answer is, and we've done all the numbers, 18 to 24 months. Is the buyer cycle for an accountant to go from never having heard of PF to absorbing our free stuff to connecting with us, maybe signing up for Accelerator. And that's okay. Like your buyer cycle might be longer or shorter. The point is that you are being present until they are ready. And they might be ready in a day, and they might be ready in 3 years. Yeah. And you, like Karen said, you don't even know they exist. But let's talk about results as well. This is and I touched on it briefly. I talked about tracking all the numbers, and I want you guys to hear from Colin and Kieran about what results actually look like, because it is a myth and a fallacy in your mind that, okay, fine, I'll do social like they say to do social, and then in a month or 2 months, or, you know, I'll give it some time, I will instantly see people going, hey, I, you know, followed you on Twitter, I liked your comment on Insta, and now I've gotten in touch. So Kieran, what do you find results looks like for social media or for marketing in general for you?
Nowadays, we certainly do track a lot of those numbers without dwelling too long on them either, Karen.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, your Facebook, you know, page likes and number of followers and engagements in certain posts and stuff like that. We actually have an external marketing person who does some of this stuff, and actually once a month will feed back to me and say, well, look, this is all your stats, and there's a couple of things that are interesting. So they'll highlight things like, we've tried to do a post at a certain time, and sometimes been surprised to say, you know, okay, so we're trying to post around 10 in the morning, we're trying to post around 4 p.m. There's one at around 8 p.m. seems to have done really well. Let's try something around that and stuff. So in terms of what results looks like, certainly gather all those key numbers from your social media. But again, don't dwell on it. Do get your Google Analytics and your website data as well, and react to that. But don't dwell on these things too much, and don't ever put yourself in the position where you're putting your mind into that this isn't working frame, because it's just this bit hasn't worked as well as this bit, and sort of go from there. And so I suppose it's hard to sort of define what results actually look like. Certainly keep a track on. I mean, we always do ask people when they come to us, you know, do you follow us on the following, just to sort of see where you've actually come from as well. So track those things. Most of ours, when we did track it, Karen, our leads are mainly coming from LinkedIn. Now we are using Facebook, and we do get some stuff from there. But as you said, Facebook for groups and so on. You know, results wise, track and react accordingly, just like you do for any other number, I suppose, in your business.
Yeah, and I would also encourage you, you know, again, with what Karen said about the invisible, maybe that's a better term than the lurkers, the invisible people. They are there. You just don't see them until they're ready. Yes.
Nearly Halloween.
The ghosts, they're floating around. They'll become visible. It's the, you know, let's use our Harry Potter terminology. It's the invisibility cloak. They're wearing it. You're not able to see them, but they can pull it off at any moment. And then suddenly they're there. And it is tempting. Like, even if you ask them, where did you find us, or what have you been following us on? They're not even going to know the answer. And that's healthy. If you say, how did you find us? And they go, do you know what? Gosh, I'm not actually sure. That's a winning answer. That's what you want. That means that they saw your website, they followed your social, they heard about you from somewhere, and it's all sort of mixed up until they decided they were ready to get in touch. So ultimately, the main number you want to track is how many leads are we getting and how many did we convert to clients? And then, like Karen said, all those other data simply help you try and play with things. But remember the invisible people, because they are there. And if you're not doing anything, the invisible people are just going away rather than becoming more visible. Colin, what has Comerford Foley's experience has been with this, seeing results?
Yeah, and I suppose similar to Kieran, we track the results, and PF provide that service to us. Elaine, she's excellent, and we have a monthly report. And in fairness, it's funny that similar to what Kieran says, we don't overly worry about the numbers. Like what we do notice is our website visits have consistently gone up. So
Yes.
we were over 3,000 visitors a month to the website from the start of the year. That's probably gone back to 2,000 or thereabouts. There'll always be a drop in the summer,
Yes.
but that, you know, it's interesting to see where they're coming from. So we track that. Or are they coming from social? Are they coming from where they're coming from? But that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, because really it's about who's picking up the phone or who's messaging you on LinkedIn, and are there queries coming in, and very much. And I suppose I'm the tax person of the business, and what we notice is, and we consistently write blogs, so I tend to write about what I know, which is tax, and I try and not make it too boring, and I try and put in a personal element of it to it as well. But certainly we'd get a lot of calls in about particular tax queries, and they would lead to a meeting, which we charge for the meeting, and then sometimes they can lead to projects. So we feel that once we're having more conversations because of social media, because we're getting more calls in, we're getting more queries in, and that's important. But one of the things I did notice is that in some of the blogs I've written about, we didn't want those types of clients, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So we were writing about stuff that I knew about, but it wasn't particularly an area of the business that we wanted to focus in on. So and that's what I'd say to people: if you have a niche, like our niche, say, would be business sales, business valuations, business transfers, and we've done a lot of stuff around that and got projects out of that. But be careful, I suppose, as well, on the type of client you're trying to attract. So,
such a good point. We talked about that with audience, and we've had other accountants who have said the same, which is that when you're answering those questions, answer the questions and talk about the things for the clients you want. So if you get a question from a very small client or a startup client and you answer that, you're going to get more of them inquiring. So we had an accountant who started to do more videos on Instagram, and within a week, he noticed that he was getting lots of leads, lots of messages, lots of people interested, and they were all startups, and they were all freelancers, and they were all small. And he went, oh, I need to check my content that I'm sharing. So he shifted what he was talking about. He got fewer people getting in touch, but the ones who did were better for him, better quality. So it isn't, it's about better, not more. And if you focus on more, sometimes more isn't better. Most of the time, more isn't better. It's just more. And if you're going, oh, I have 80 leads and 40 of them have turned into meetings, and 20 of those meetings were half decent, and 10 of those were the kind of people I want to work with, and 5 of them took a proposal and 3 of them signed, you've got 3 out of 80. Wouldn't it be better to have like 3 or 4 that were all awesome, and then 2 or 3 of those signed? You're saving all that time. And that's what you can be doing with social. I did also want to point out, this is a new, and Steph will share the link to it. This is a free guide that we've created based on what we call the buyer progression model. And if you can see it here, this is what Kieran was talking about. If you try and jump from, in the pub, do you want to get married? You're jumping from nothing straight to a retainer. You need to let people slowly move through this. So they go from never having heard of you to slowly being aware, to downloading some free things. Again, we live this by example at PF. You go to our website and you'll see the free stuff there. You can read incredibly detailed articles and videos and resources on our blog. We have tons of free things. We love giving away free things. And whenever you're ready, you may have a small paid thing, and that may lead you to a retainer if you want to, if it suits you. And we're trying to encourage accountants to follow the same sort of progression model, because that is how people buy, which is what Colin and Kieran have pointed out and have learned. Another point that we had discussed was the consistency in the same direction and making a habit of social. So Kieran, what kind of thoughts do you have to share with people? Because people have indicated here in the chat, like, hey, this takes a lot of time. So how do you encourage people to lean into that, making a habit of it, without getting overly frustrated about how much time it takes?
I think first and foremost, like, you've got to start somewhere. So you've got to, take that first step in terms of deciding what platform you're going to go for, or go for a number of them and just start doing something. Sit back and think about what you're looking to post about, the target audience that you're aiming at, or are you just going to do, it's very much a case of attention with intention.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that in a book by a guy called Chris Bailey called Hyperfocus.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a chapter on, if you're going to do anything, then make sure you're doing it and not just kind of half doing it because you think you have to do these things. So very much a case of develop the habit, be very consistent, and be frequent. I ran a coaching group actually last year and into this year, and there were startup sort of practices and couple of practices who had been up and running for 2 or 3 years, and we covered a whole section on social media and marketing and so on. And the biggest challenge they had was taking that first step.
Yep.
It was the fear of, what if I write the wrong thing? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I, what if I look silly? What if I mumble and garble my way through things? If anybody looks at some of my social media, like, I never watch my videos back again. So the habit that I have is just, I know what I'm going to talk about. I go for it. I generally do it in 1 or 2 takes, unless it's, generally 1, because I just kind of go, okay, I know what I'm going to say. Make sure I say this, this, and this. Okay. And I just kind of go for it. So get into the habit of taking that first step first and foremost. Yeah. It's kind of like, feel the fear. What's the worst can happen if you, and at the end of the day, if you're writing something technical or business advice, you're not really going to get it too wrong. We're all accountants. We all have the experience of running our own business. We have experience of advising our clients, so you can do this. So
and you probably have like 3 followers anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. So they'll hopefully all be engaged.
Yeah, all 3 of them. Your mom and those 2 other people, they will be absolutely. But I find that too, Kieran, that accountants are like, what if I say the wrong thing? What if it sounds stupid? But first, there's not that many people following you at the beginning. And then once you get them, they're following you for a reason. So if they don't like you, or they are offended that you misspelled something or stumbled over your word, let them go. Let them go. They're not going to be your people. They're just not. They can always unfollow. And this is why being yourself and being authentic and real is so important, because some people, this is a shocking statement, are not going to like you. Yeah. And it's totally okay, because if everybody likes you, first, I don't even think it's possible, but second, you probably have to be pretty bland, because you need to please everyone. So being fully yourself and letting people follow or not follow is a much stronger way than trying to get everyone to like you.
I think I try to actually reframe that myself. And this is I think, a mental health thing. It's like, don't think about whether people like you or like you on, it's like, they're just not interested. Yeah, that's not their bag. They want to deal with somebody doing it this way, and that's fine, because that's the market that we're in. Yes. Not everyone's going to be attracted to what you're doing and what you're trying to provide and how you provide it. Yes. And that's okay as well. Yeah. We've had certainly prospects come to us and we says, look, we don't actually work that way, so that's not going to work for either of us. So, but we can recommend you to a few others who might work that way. Yeah. And that's the whole process I think you have to get into. So, which is the habit.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just thinking, it's in terms of the habit, make a start if you haven't made a start, and by doing your first post on whatever platform or whatever platforms, and just see how it goes. But make it consistent. Yeah. You need to be doing this 3 times a week. You don't have to do it every single day, and just mix it up a little bit and be personal. Like, Karen, some of the posts that we have on our pages and so on, the ones that attract the most attention are the personal kind of ones. I do. I did a wee video to say when we won our award with Xero at the start of the year, it was very much, thanks very much and blah, blah, blah. And I did a bloopers reel because for some reason, this was the one that I kept screwing up. Yep. And the bloopers reel got a lot of attention because it was like, oh, that's funny, And there are some accountants across Ireland and UK who are doing a lot of comedy type stuff as well,
Yeah.
and they're building that in. But so for some people, it's like it's a bit too unprofessional. But for some people, they're like, oh, I love it. And that's fine, because some clients want to work with this type of person. Some clients want to work with it. Some people drink whiskey. Some people drink vodka, whatever.
And it's just about being human. That's exactly it. I mean, I personally love whiskey. I'm fascinated by it. I told you guys about the whiskey distillery. Either people who are going to be interested to talk about it, or maybe not at all. And that's fine. I like to look at it as like a book or a film. You know, when people say, is that book good? I don't answer that question anymore with a yes or no. It's not about whether it's good. It's like art. You don't say this piece of art is good or bad. You say, did it resonate? Did it connect? Did you connect with it in some way? So I might watch a film or read a book and say, you know, I really connected with that in this way. And when I explain how I connected with it and you go, oh, that connects with me too, then you might want to watch it. Or you might go, that sounds terrible and I don't like it. And that is fine. But it's less about whether, like Kieran says, whether people like you, and it's more about whether what you're saying resonates with them. Colin, what are some of your thoughts about building a habit and how you began to build that?
I suppose in terms of our consistency, we're pretty consistent now. We weren't before. We have a lady that helps us. We probably post across different channels 6 days a week, but you know, that's a lady given, you know, that does it for us. And then we would consistently write blogs, and then the team, I suppose, would share on social media. And we generally use LinkedIn. And I suppose when I say consistency, we publish a blog, probably 50 blogs a year, so we're nearly there every week. We give the poor readers a few weeks off at Christmas, and maybe a few weeks at summertime when in August when nobody seems to do anything. But I would think we're pretty consistent across the platforms. But you know, what was interesting there is that even though we're consistent, some of the stuff feels, you know, when we started doing it, it certainly felt uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, and even with Kieran and with you, because Elaine, who's a team member there at PF, said to me a few weeks ago when we were on a call that you have clients that are doing 100 videos in 100 days.
Yep.
And I thought, oh my God, that would frighten the life out of me. And
right.
But I realized that's the sort of next step for us, that we need to do more video content.
Yep. Yes.
And with Google owns YouTube, and people now will, you know, people's time is precious, and they don't want to spend 5 or 6 or 10 minutes reading a blog about tax. But they might want to look at a video for 45 or 50 seconds where they get the main points.
Yes.
And I think that's where we need to go to. But what we would say is like we've done this probably consistently over the last maybe year and a half. But what we would say is that you know, don't expect the calls to come in immediately, but they will come in. And we know that they've read a blog. You know, they'll tell, oh, I read a blog and I have this issue. Or, you know, and it's funny, going back to the asking someone to marry you scenario, we had that recently with a particular call in where they looked at, you know, so before we've had somebody call into the office and they're a cold lead, and so you might have a meet, you know, they might have catch you off guard, and then you have a meeting with them, and you know, so they don't know anything about you, you don't know anything about them, and that's you're nearly trying to sell then, which is not a bad, it's not a good way to be. Whereas on the social media side of things, that if you're you know, you have consistent social media out there, and your website looks good, and I think that's very important for a lot of accountants, that their website is probably not up to scratch. And even ourselves, we're going to change and have a new website at the start of next year that, you know, everything might look really good on social media, but when you go back to your website and that looks terrible, or it's a one page, or as you said, the last blog was about the budget in 2007, you know, that just doesn't give that consistent picture. And, you know, we had a call from somebody recently, and it was like flirting, I would say, because they had checked us out on social media.
To the stage here.
they had read the blogs. They had asked about us. So when they came to us, they actually wanted to buy. They were a warm lead.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's what you want, is you want somebody to come to you who has been educated in the way you do things, because remember, good marketing divides. So that means that if somebody reads your blogs and watches your videos and doesn't like you or doesn't connect with you, isn't, you know, what you say doesn't resonate, your marketing will do its job by dividing them right out and sending them away. And you won't bother with having them come in and have a 1-hour meeting, and you get all fired up and you think it's going to be great, and you do the proposal, and then they say it's too expensive, or then they say whatever they say that is their objection, and finally they end up going somewhere else. Why not skip all of that by them going, oh, I don't think these are my people. Great. As long as they say that based on truth and accuracy and who you actually are, which is why you need to show who you actually are. And as Colin said, this process is not merely about them becoming aware, but becoming educated. So the more they read on your blogs, and I cannot stress enough Colin's point about video. I cannot stress this enough. And as he said, we started a challenge. We're going to do it again next year because it's been really powerful. We've started a free challenge where accountants post one video a day for 100 days. As Colin said, if that terrifies you, that's okay. But you've got to build the habit somehow. So what could you do for 100 days? If you're not ready to record a video every day for 100 days, could you do a social post? Just one every day. I'm doing the 100-day challenge, and I'm going to put my hand up and say, I have not done a video every single day, but I've done a lot more videos than if I wasn't doing it. And I've given myself the grace to say, okay, I was in America. I was at a conference. I thought that it would be easy to do videos. And before I knew it, 3 days had gone by and I hadn't done one. But as soon as I thought of it, I did one. So by the end of the 100 days, I may not have a full 100 videos, but I'll probably have 60 or 70, which is more than 0, which is what I would have had before. And like Colin said, the video is the opportunity for people to get to know you in the closest, most real way. And if they don't like you, or if they don't resonate with you or connect with you, then winning, your good marketing has divided. Did you have something to add to that, Kieran?
I suppose in the overall context of what we're talking about, Kieran, today, it's really about thinking about your accountancy practice or firm very much in the business context. You know, you've got to have a marketing department. You literally have to have that. And I think a lot of accountants still do get a lot of business from referrals. But the world is changing, and it has changed quite a lot. And I suppose just to emphasize the impact of the pandemic as part of this whole situation. When the pandemic hit, I literally downed tools and literally went on to social media for a while. I created content. I created cash flow projection tools with videos to show people how to fill it in themselves. And we got clients from that, but I actually didn't mean to get clients. I literally went on and said, I think people need help here. I need to do something to help people.
That's the point of the buyer progression model that we were showing you, is when you do this to help people, you're thinking, well, what if I give away too much? And then they never need me. And one of two things will happen. Either, yes, you will give away information and they will say, thank you for this information, I'll do it myself. Or they will look at the information and go, that is amazing information. That is a whole lot of work for me to do it myself. So I better get in touch because Kieran seems like a really nice guy, really generous guy. This thing is really helpful. And then they will get in touch. So again, your good marketing has divided. It has divided the people who were never going to pay for your services anyway. All they wanted was free stuff. So give them the free stuff. Give away information, charge for implementation. That means whatever information they could freely and more or less easily find on Google, make it available free, give away that information generally, and then in order to apply it to their circumstances specifically, implementation, that's when you start charging. So if somebody looks at Kieran's cash flow thing and says, oh, hey, this is really great, but my situation's a little different. Can you help me with that, Kieran? That's when Kieran charges, because it's applying it to a particular thing. If they say, how can I use this? And Kieran says, actually, I have a video on that. Here's your free video. Go and watch it. So you're giving away information and charging for implementation. That works really well with social media. Okay, clearly we have many things that we could share. Jeremy, did you want to pause and ask for questions at this point, and then we can?
We've had a few more questions and comments coming in, actually all very, very positive, as I say to you. I think we already have probably some accountants here who already would follow both Kieran and Colin, as I say, on their blogs, on their different things here. But if there is more questions to come in, of course, please do send in questions. I think as well, you have lots of very good free material there on WeArePF. And that is very, very useful material to anybody who is starting out on their journey here. But you're right, as I say to you, and the guys who really have brought it to life there, it's all about making that first step. Whatever platform you choose, whatever you do, I know it's daunting. Some people may just stick with the LinkedIn, as I do myself. Maybe they're just sharing out their actual materials, different things. It's not so much about overanalyzing. It's not so much about actually thinking, will I have to do 10 platforms? Will I have to do 4 platforms or 1? Just start somewhere and start consistent. And you're right as well. Don't be upset if after a week you're not getting 10 queries back in or different things. It's going to take a bit longer. The guys have proven that it does work. But no, that's my thoughts so far anyway.
No, that's grand. If you guys do have specific questions, type them into the Q&A or the chat and we'll answer them. I did want to share as well, we mentioned this 100 days. This is a post I did on Instagram. It's also a blog post and it's on the other socials, but it's this concept of 100 days. And I borrowed the idea from it's a woman who's a violinist, and she was encouraging people to be working on their music every day for 100 days. And the point is that you are actively doing something every day for 100 days. So one of the things that we've learned from this 100 days video challenge that I mentioned that accountants are doing is it's really hard to record, to think of, plan for, record, publish, and share a video every day for 100 days. It's really hard. But if you are in the habit of doing something every day, then you're more likely to do more than less of it. And what I was sharing with the accountants in the group is some of them are panicking because they weren't doing it every day. So their perfectionist, warning was going off. And I said, well, as long as you're doing something towards the video, did you plan a script today? Did you record it today, even if you didn't publish it? And we were encouraging them to use something like Instagram Reels or like a 1-minute video, really, really short and simple. I've had to push myself on the 1-minute Instagram Reels. It's very hard to fit what you want to say into a minute. I did one yesterday and I must have re-recorded it about 18 times, quite a lot of swearing. I didn't save those ones, although several people have now asked for those bloopers. I'm like, no, because I just kept hitting discard and starting over. It's hard to fit it into 60 seconds, but man, is it good practice. So I think practice would be the key. And I've heard that from both Kieran and Colin, is it's not going to go perfectly at first. And that's the kicker. As accountants, you want to get it perfect. And this social media especially is an area of marketing that you will not get perfect. You're going to learn by trying stuff, and some things will work and some things won't. And I suppose my question for both Kieran and Colin, we'll start with you, Colin, is how do you get, where do you get your encouragement and help to keep going when you hit your point of like, I don't know if this is even worth it? Any marketing, but especially social.
I would think that it's really you see the results, Karen, and ultimately I think we we're accountants, tax advisors, whatever we are, we want to work with nice clients. We want to work with ideal clients that value our business and pay us on time and grow the practice. And ultimately, I think that if we want to grow, we're all on a business journey. We want to have the best accountancy firm we can possibly have. But what I would see this as a very important tool to actually grow your practice and to build the type of practice that you want, and whatever type that is. But what I mean is that, we're spending a lot of time doing the work, and it should be enjoyable. And we're trying to attract the type of clients that we want to work with. And if we can attract those types of clients, well, then, we're going to be happier at work. The clients will be happy. And I suppose from a staff retention point of view, that's very important, because we have to like what we're doing and we have to enjoy what we're doing. And that for me is trying to attract the right staff, the right clients, and that it's just a vital tool to try and help that.
I love that point about that you want to work with people that you like and do work you enjoy. That's a big thing for us at PF, is that, in addition to better, it's really the better, not more. It's not about getting more clients. It's about getting better clients that for you. So somebody who's a perfect fit for Kieran might not be a perfect fit for Colin, might not be a perfect fit for this other firm. And not only is that okay, it's right and good, because you're not going to serve everybody. So I love the reminder of being consistent and keeping going and keeping that big picture in mind. Kieran, what helps you to sort of keep going when maybe things are going up and down or in the down period?
I think the answer to that, Kieran, is it's what gets you out of bed in the morning anyway, not just marketing, social media stuff. It's like what gets you out of bed to actually keep doing what we're doing in terms of running your business. And for me, it's my family.
Right.
And if I start with that, then that's the whole start with why you're doing these things. And I want to make sure that my family have a standard of living that maybe I wasn't able to have when I was younger. So that's my kind of starting point with everything. So if I'm thinking then about social media and I'm thinking about marketing, I'm thinking about, okay, next thing I think you need to do as a practice owner is to say, what type of business and practice do you want to have? Do you want to scale, or do you want to sort of maintain?
Yeah.
But in maintaining, there are going to be clients who exit because they decide to go somewhere else for whatever reason, or they close or they sell. So you still do need active leads coming in the door. So the why is the first thing. The second thing is realizing that you're going to have to recycle clients, or if you're looking to scale, then you're going to have a marketing and sales strategy in place to be able to do that. And once I get to that stage, I'm kind of in a bit of a flow in terms of, right, okay, I need to do, I'll do this now. We'll look ahead. We'll think about another event. We'll do, I get ideas starting to fire at that stage once I get beyond those first couple of hurdles that kind of kick you off. So for me, it's about deciding why you're doing what you're doing, and deciding how you want to do that and what type of business you want. There are some accountants who might want to have 2,000-3,000 clients. We're sitting at around 140, 150. I have no massive ambition myself to go to 300, 400, 500 because it changes my life in some kind of way. So you kind of decide how all of this is meant to fit together. And the good thing I like about social as well is if you can cut out some of the noise, and sometimes that's hard to do. There are sometimes I've just had enough of certain things, and you just go, give myself a break for a day. I'm not going to go on again. And try to follow the right people who inspire you as well. Like I like following the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk. He's Marmite for some people, but I kind of get it and see where he's going with it. And some of that stuff inspires me as well, Karen. So following the right type of content.
I wanted to bring this up. One of our team was presenting at an event last week in America, and these were her points just about marketing in general, but I think it really applies to social media. And she was talking about how you need to connect, and this directly relates to what Kieran was saying. You connect your personal goals with your marketing. So what is it that you personally want to get out of? And then your marketing actions flow from that. The things that you're doing are because of what you want to do personally. The second thing is your goal is to actually send some people away, the people who aren't a fit for you. And then the third thing is to keep going in the same direction. Now, if you discover that that direction isn't right for you and need to shift it, fine. But until, or if you know that it's not the right direction, keep going, because that 100 days thing is just the beginning, really. And when you think about how far you've gotten with the firm that you have now, most of the success that you've had is because you've kept consistently doing the good things, like Colin was saying at the beginning. Like, he was thinking, well, if we just do good work, people will find us. And then discovering, actually, that's not necessarily true. But if we keep doing good work while we are being present, then people will not only find us, they will see who we actually are, and they will connect with that. So I encourage you.
Talk about the good work you're doing as well.
Yes. Yeah.
That's where I see a lot of people who are seemingly getting a fair bit of traction on social. It's like they tell everyone what they're doing, and what results they've got for a client. We did this, we saved a client this amount of money. So you can certainly share that type of stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was said to me before, and I think that's a very good point, because when clients read about your social, or they read blogs, or they read whatever posts you have, they're reading it, but they're thinking about themselves.
Yes.
So what's in this for me?
Yeah.
So if you're sharing client stories or client wins or client successes, and that resonates with them, and they can say, well, that could be potentially me there, because I could save money by going to Kieran.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I know we're nearly at time, so I thought I would just ask Colin and Kieran, if you had one thing that you just want to share and say, this is my thing I want to make sure you know going away from this, what would that be? It could either be a practical thing they could do, or a mindset. Kieran, what would yours be?
It's get started. Do something rather than doing nothing. Doing nothing is going to get you exactly that. That's going to be your result. So do something. It might be write a blog today or over the weekend or Monday, and think about what it is you want to write a blog about. Is it something that you want to talk about in terms of an upcoming tax deadline? Is it something that's going to help somebody improve their business? And that's, I suppose, content creation to get a bit of attraction. But also think about writing blogs that you want to write as well, because you have to be happy in everything you're doing. So be happy in what you're doing, and make that decision as well. But do something rather than doing nothing. Make it a short post, make it a short video, do something. Love it.
And Colin, what would yours be?
I suppose I would say get started and get help, because I think this isn't my area, and we've got fantastic help from you, Karen, and I would just say, look, just if it's not your thing, you'll be behind it, but just get some help to get started.
Love it. So just get started being the theme, and I'm going to support that. Actually, with my tip was going to be very similar. Just get started and just keep going. I have you can see it on my Instagram. Instagram is my place, but I do share it elsewhere as well. I have this mug that I got at a conference that says, just get started. And I loved it. And I took it with me everywhere I was hiking, because I thought, I get to these beautiful places at the top of a mountain in Scotland, and it's because I just got started. And I took the first step out the front door and got my hiking boots, etc. But then after a while, I thought, it isn't just the getting started, because if you start and then get to the place and take 3 steps and stop, you're not going to get to the mountain either. So the next stage for me is just keep going. And I actually had a custom little tin enamel mug made for me because I couldn't find the one I wanted. So I made it myself. And now I have 2 mugs. One says just get started and one says just keep going. And those are my things for marketing and for life and for anything you want to achieve. And it sounds like Kieran and Colin have both, tapped into that as well. And I love Colin's of just get help as well, because this isn't something you're going to be able to get perfectly yourself. You're going to need help from your fellow accountants, from Kieran and Colin, from ourselves at PF, from Jeremy and Chartered the Institute. All of those people and companies and organizations are there to help you. So receive that and just get started and just keep going and just get the help that you need.
Karen, I would like to say thank you very, very much, and to Colin, Kieran and Stephanie as well. I know we fitted a lot in here in the last hour and a half, and it really is a taster session. Hopefully for those people who are still on the call with us, and it's always a good sign we've virtually everyone sticking on right even beyond 5 minutes to say afterwards, that it's given you just answered some of your questions, as I say, with relation to yeah, basically what platforms do I go for? And yeah, that whole thing is, you've done it this morning, get started. But if you want to learn more, I know you can contact yourselves, and we're actually going to send out your slides actually as well that you were going through there after the actual presentation this morning. Of course, we're delighted in the Institute if you contact us and practice members as well. As I say, I know you've helped many firms, including Kieran and Colin and many other firms across the world, but the UK and Ireland in particular as well. So you're always there. And even if it's no more than the next step, then you get the slides, go look at next week, go to the actual ERPF website and see the other materials you have as well. And if even, and I was the same way as well, and I still have not gone far along the track, just keep making a post, making something, you're right, comment and share on the posts as well, get a bit of traction going. And whether you're like me and Kieran and you only have 3 followers, or whether you have 10, you can grow it anyway from there. And basically just go from there. That is very good. Look, guys, because we are gone a couple of minutes over, I would just like to say thank you again for taking the time, Karen, Colin and Kieran and Stephanie, for coming along and joining us this morning. As ever, I'd like to thank our team as well in Chartered Accountants Ireland, so our CPD team, to Linda, to Chris, to Darren, Nicole, everybody else, and also as well to my colleague Bernie on this one. As I say, we will be doing other events again, and who's to know, Karen, I know we've collaborated in past ones, we may have something again.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, if there's any particular element of social that you all want to learn more about, whether it's LinkedIn or a particular platform or video, you may not want to, but I encourage you, like Colin said, you need to. And the more you know about it, the less scary it can be. So if there's a particular area, I'm always happy to come back and share more. And I'm sure the rest are as well.
Indeed, and you've actually pinpointed something that I was nearly forgot that I was going to say. Obviously, we're planning other technology events into 2022. I know, Kieran, you were good enough to come on our last practice news back about 3 weeks ago. So we're always looking for different areas that you're going to cover. This is one, social media, marketing, very important. We're still looking for ideas for a technology conference in January. And if you have other events like this, maybe it's social media, maybe it's different in technology, please come back to us and practice members as well. We're always happy to hear your points, take them on board, and we'll be planning more of these events as well. As I say, it's always good to, as I say, if you're just starting out, to begin to learn something. If you're a little bit more advanced, hopefully this morning has helped you as well. And even if it has just given you that perseverance, here in Colin, here in Kieran, just to battle on and to keep doing it, the results will come. If you throw it all in after a couple of weeks or even the 100 days, maybe not. You just need to keep going. Listen, guys, it's been great to have you on this morning. As I say, thanks to everyone as well who has taken the time to join with us this morning. As I say, if you do have any questions, come back to us in Practice Consulting for our practice members' email address. We will send on the slides for Karen and the team. And listen, hopefully, wherever you're at on social media, it's been a benefit to you this morning, and that you'll continue on with your work and you will see results. I'm going to say bye-bye to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.